Hello, everybody. Welcome. My name is Ashton Harrison. I'm the worship leader in the youth ministry of Living Word. I'm super excited to be here with these guys. Super excited. We're going to talk about worship today. So stay tuned, listen up. They've got some awesome stuff to share with us. But I've got Paris Primo with me. I've got Pastor Nicole Rasmussen. I'm going to let them introduce themselves. So Paris, will you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I am currently the worship director for Living Word St. Paul, and so shout out to St. Paul. I love y'all. But I have been involved in worship and leading worship since some point in middle school, and that's been a huge part of my life. And I've been really blessed to lead in a lot of different situations and settings. I also went to school for that. So I've been able to get an education that was really valuable with a lot of just experience in different places. What's that? Yes. And so the last few years, though, I've gotten to travel and write with some amazing people and just be a part of some awesome settings. And so, yeah, my whole life is revolved around corporate worship and personal worship for a long time.
It's amazing. Seems like the Lord's really giving you some awesome opportunities to use that.
It's been wild.
Love it. Pastor Nicole, would you share about your background in worship?
Yeah, so I got involved in worship. I went to a summer camp, youth summer camp, and it was really fun. And something shook in me. I was actually a really shy kid, but I saw all these people that were leading worship, and I was like, "What? That's kind of cool." I kind of maybe want to do that. I'm so scared though. And I remember feeling like, okay, I guess I feel like I was just like, I feel like God's telling me to do this, and I don't really know what this even really means to go be a part of the church in this way, but I'm going to go audition because I felt like I was supposed to. And I remember auditioning and my knees were shaking and I was so scared, and I definitely cracked in the audition. My voice was something, something scary. But they let me be involved. They called me back and let me be involved in the worship team. And that was, I think, 2008 is when I started. And I volunteered in the youth group and got to lead worship a little bit towards the end of there. Right around 2013, I think, is when I got hired at Living Word Christian Center, and I worked in the youth group for a while. And then I ended up working at the Fifth Service, which was a really great experience. So I've been here since 2013 on the worship staff, and I've loved it. It's been awesome. Quite a growing experience.
Yes. I'm very glad you were obedient. Way back. I mean, for all of us. I mean, it's a perfect example, for anyone out there that the Lord may be calling you to do something. Like, a lot of times, it's us people who are super shy, super introverted. I mean, not always, obviously, but, he can take you where he wants you to go, so.
Absolutely.
I love that. Well, cool. Why don't we go ahead and get started? I have a few questions I've given these guys in advance just to be thinking about, praying about how they would want to share about it in regards to worship. So let's go ahead and get started. I'll start with the basics. Paris, do you want to tell us what is worship?
Yeah, so this goes so beyond music as well, which I think is something that we just want to address. But the concept as a whole would be, we worship a lot of different things, and maybe we don't realize that we do, but it's basically that magnifying, that lifting up something and giving power to it, giving attention to it. Whatever we're spending the most attention and reverence for is what we're worshiping. And so like on a practical day-to-day thing, how we do that with God, I believe is just connecting our consciousness to his presence and making that the biggest thing and making that what we're giving power to.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah. Okay. That's super cool. I love that perspective. Give power to it. Give energy to it. Give energy, whatever you're giving energy to. When we're talking about worshiping God, like giving energy, giving time. I always think of there's this verse in Ephesians, and it's Ephesians 2:8, for it is by grace we are saved through faith. And what's interesting, that word faith, if you look it up in the Greek, there's a lot of different perspectives that can take on. But one that I really, really love, divine persuasion. So it's letting God have a moment to persuade you. It's obviously an exchange. Worship, as I think as this church knows it, is a little bit more like prayer, where it's an exchange, it's a conversation. Definitely when you're talking about what actual worship is glorifying God, but something that I think we do as a church is we're praying, we're engaging with God, we're reminding ourselves of how good He is, and then glorifying Him for it. And I think that in general, worship can be, obviously it could be for anything, but in this church and with God, it's definitely engaging with Him. And I think even just at that point, just to choosing to engage with God, that is worship to Him, that is glorifying Him. Yeah. I just think that's really valuable.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, even just to expound on that, I heard it put this way by a well-known pastor, that worship is really offering a gift to God, a gift to the Creator, but expecting nothing in return. And that's really the only way that we can worship Him. It's going to Him, offering a gift to Him, expecting nothing back, just for who He is, not because we want something. So.
I mean, okay, one more thought with that is, I love how God made us creatures of choice. We have so many choices, and I think so many of them are good, and God has created so many beautiful options for us, but He loves to be involved in what we're doing, and He loves to be included, and He loves to be chosen. And this is a place that we can choose Him. It's actively choosing Him, I think, and it's expressing affection.
Yeah, that's so good. Pastor Nicole, would you start off telling us now why we worship Him? We've talked about what it is, but why?
Yeah. So, I mean, I kind of already said a little bit about it. It's acknowledging His goodness it's for His sake, because He loves to be chosen, because He loves to be included. And also it's for our sake to remember how good He is, to remember and put before us and lean into God. It's reminding us, reminding our bodies and our minds and our surroundings, who He is and what He is, that He is in charge. I think worship, we do it because, I think first and foremost, we originally do it because He asks us to, Yep. But we also do it because when we look at Him, what else is there to do? What else is there but to tell Him, wow, you're beautiful. Wow, you love well, God, Yeah. So, I think it's in response. It's almost like, my why is in response is because He's good.
Yeah. Yeah, because He's deserving. He's the only one deserving of it. Did you have anything you'd like to add to that, Paris?
Yeah, I think it's that's all super good too, and I think there's an extra part that goes with it where it's we have at our base, at our core, been created to worship, and all of creation worships, but we have to remember the character of God, and anything He asks us to do is actually for our benefit. So yes, it is to give honor and glory to God, but there's also a piece of it that He knows is for our good. And so whenever God has asked us to do something, or maybe asked us not to do something, it's important to keep the mindset that God always has my best interest at heart. And it's because there's something in it for our souls to engage with God. Anytime that you engage with God, you leave better. You leave with more peace. You're more connected. And we were just created to worship. All of creation worships, but it's at the fabric of who we are. And I believe that's why we worship, intentionally or unintentionally, because it's just in us.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I think it's really easy to have this mindset that worship's only in relation to music. Very easy to, which it's not. So what are some different ways that we can express worship to God outside of music?
I think even conversations like this, they bring glory to God and they bring a connection and awareness of God. But I mean, it can also be as simple as just taking the time alone to just be with God. And that might not even be an exchange of speaking, just to be aware of his presence and let there be honor there. Because even our breath honors God. It's honestly can be in anything that you do, and it should be in anything that you do, because it's so broad, and we were just made to be honoring to God. Yeah. So yeah, in any way, really.
Yeah, that makes me think of the verse, and everything you do, do is unto the Lord, and that's really worship to me. Like everything we do, if we're acknowledging him and we're doing it unto him, for his glory, that's worship ultimately. Did you have anything to add?
I mean, everything. You could do it in anything. In all things is possible. And I mean, from cleaning the floor to talking with your friends to enjoying your life, that can be worship and can bring glory to God. Everything that you do can. And I if we're Christians, if we love Jesus, if he has called us holy, then I believe that we can glorify him in so many things. I think it's probably when you have an awareness of God. I mean, this is such an ongoing conversation too. We're always learning about all the details of how we can worship him. But, I mean, anything and everything. Music is a tiny piece. I like to express myself. I like to worship God in music because I like music.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, ultimately, if we're acknowledging him and our heart is for him, like it's worship. So that's awesome.
All art, which sometimes we put in the box of Christian or non-Christian, but like all art could glorify God, whether you're putting that label on it or not, if you're connecting with God's presence and aware of it, it's glorifying.
Absolutely. So, along with that, what is a form of worship that you like to utilize in your life outside of music?
I like to write, like literally write things down, especially like this is just a practice that helps me in general process things or to remember the things that God has done in my life, especially when I start to get overwhelmed. I will just write down like the things that God has done for me and then write like a thanks for that, because it also keeps me grounded. Like if the Lord has come through for me so many times, how would he not do it again? So it also is for my well-being, but also to give it back to the Lord.
That's beautiful. Yeah. Nicole?
Yeah. I guess where I'm coming from is like, I always I consider this a lot, like in all the, if you can worship him in everything, it's obviously the question is, what do you like? Mm-hmm. What do you pursue probably in worshiping him? It's so hard because it's like literally, I guess I think everything. It's like, I see myself, I do like writing. I like music. I like expressing myself that way in music. I like spending time with people and like having a good time. And that sounds like a hobby or like just something I like to do. But I really think that loving people well is a really important and beautiful way to worship God.
Yeah.
And so I think that's probably one of my favorite ways. I think that's one of the first ways that can really, I just think that loving people like Jesus did is really beautiful. I actually recently I read this quote and I thought it was so cool. Loving people like Jesus. I think this is a quote. It's Bob Goff. It's deriving from Bob Goff, but loving people like Jesus did is good theology. Anyways, I think that loving people is probably where that starts for me.
For sure. I guess a big one for me would be loving my family, getting to spend time with them, my husband and my daughter. I love loving them, Yes. And then I guess one of my favorite ways to just like acknowledge God, talk to him, be able to just quiet everything is being in nature. If I can, it's hard, but if I can find a time where I can go out and be by myself and it's just quiet and I can just see God's beauty in nature and everything that he made, I just love that. So, okay, I think you guys are really going to love this next question. Is there a role for creativity in worship, and what is that role?
Oh my goodness. I don't know. That's like breathtakingly resounding. There is always room for creativity in worship. In fact, worship is expression. And I don't know how you do that without being creative. I think at our base as humans, we're creative. At our base as humans, we're made to worship. So yes, and there's always room. And if there isn't, that's very confusing. There's always room for creativity in worship.
Absolutely.
Oh, we are literally made by the creator of the universe in his image. And this is why I am heartbroken, disappointed a lot of times at the lack of true creativity in the Christian music industry and in Christian art. It literally blows my mind. Like, we are the ones. Christians are the ones who should be beaming with creativity because we know that we're connected to the source that created everything. So we should be at the forefront of that. And I literally will commit my life to everything that I make, everything that I do will reflect that. And I really hope that we get to the point as a culture where like we care about that. We're not just doing the same thing, or we're thinking, oh, well, that's going to distract people. No, like we should be so creative because we're made in the image of the likeness of the one who created everything, you know?
Yeah.
I'm so passionate about that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so beautiful. I mean, God made us as creative beings. So like it honors and blesses his heart when we create and do that and use those gifts that he's given us, like he gave them to us to be used. So I think that's beautiful. Can hop to the next question here. What other use does musical worship have besides bringing a congregation together? Would you like to start that one, Paris?
I'm kind of going to go a little bit from personal experience here, but for me, just from some of the things that I have walked through in my life, I don't think that I would have gotten through certain seasons without the role that individual worship played in my life. And something that is just a crazy deep thing that one of our worship leaders at St. Paul, Amanda, has brought up before that I never even thought about is that humanity is the one creation that worships through pain. And that's something that the angels don't do. Like they worship, but they're not worshiping through pain the way that we do. And I have had to worship through pain in my life, like absolutely insane how deep that's been in certain seasons. And that worship, that promise of God over my life through music had to be an anchor for me. I mean, there were times where there was a season where I, for 8 months, sang a specific song prophetically every day. And I had no evidence of what I was singing for at all. I mean, I was told it would literally never happen. And so I sang that over my life every day in the face of it not being, of it not happening until I saw it happen. And that time in between and that time in worshiping and having that as an anchor when I did not feel like it and when it was not, everything wasn't good, that's honestly what was my anchor. And now I can sing that song from the place of the victory of it.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I mean, I think we can all relate to that this year especially.
Yeah.
There's been so much going on, both in the world and in individual lives that we've all been going through and really been learning to worship through that pain and in that as we're healing.
Yeah. It's prophetic.
Yeah, and so that just to explain that. So there's a place for worship congregationally as well as individually, which I think is beautiful. There's a place for both.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. When I think about congregational worship, I think it's there to create and help build unity. I think it's there to remember a message that has spoken to us. And if it's timely, it's for now. It's a message that we can hold on to. We obviously use congregational worship potentially at a service with lots of people around us that agree the same thing. Again, we're unifying, but it's just something that we'll be able to it's a tool hopefully throughout the week. I think that's kind of what you put it in song form it's almost like to remember it and to have it be stuck in your head.
Yep.
I'm sure that there's many other reasons, but it just really connects you to each other, to God, and to the message that you are singing, which if it's glorifying God, if it's remembering who you are, who he is, you know.
Wait, how was that question worded? I think I answered it backwards.
No, I think you answered
it both
beautifully.
ways. Yeah, it was beautiful.
Yeah, it was just like, what other ways can musical worship be used besides just bringing
besides okay,
yeah,
okay, good.
just besides
I thought I did it
congregationally.
backwards.
Yeah. You answered perfectly.
I was just taking it into a weird direction.
No, I love that.
Yeah.
Totally. So, okay, that's all of the pre-planned questions I have. Do you guys have any other just thoughts about worship? Any things you'd like to add? Any topics you'd like to bring up?
I think Acts 16 is really important. Just the story of Paul and Silas when they're locked up in the prison, and they, like, in the worst set of circumstances, kind of what we talked about before, you know, they worship in that place, and it literally shakes the earth, and an earthquake happens, and then all the prisoners get set free. And to me, that's one of the most powerful stories, though there are many, about worship in the Bible, and just that your worship not only brings healing and freedom to your life, but to everyone around you. And I think that's another purpose, even in like what we're talking about with congregational or individual. Your life and your worship can affect someone so mightily, whether you even meant to or not. And so I think that that's a power that we have when we engage in that. Like, it's not even only just for our own well-being, but for everyone around us. And it's important to be aware of that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I guess just one more thought that I was having while we were talking about all of this. I think a lot, again, I think about worship in, I think a lot of different ways, but in a church, in this building, I think about it a little bit in a musical form, a little bit in a congregational form. And one thought, like recently, I was reading a book by Bob Goff. So it's called Everybody Always. It's a good book. But he, at some point in his book, he mentions this one, and it just has stuck with me. I'm not going to be able to direct quote this, but it was so funny to me. He's like, we don't need to send the archers to the tower to defend baby Jesus when someone plays like a wrong note. You know, like it matters. Like we want to care about the details, and that's, again, it's a form of expression, so it matters. But like, I think he was kind of talking about life in general too. He wasn't directly talking about worship, but I think he's just talking about like how God is patient, and he's calling us to be patient. Yeah. And if our lives are worship, you know, again, that's loving people. That's loving people well. That's being there for them. And
even being patient with ourselves sometimes too.
Absolutely. I mean, I think, goodness, I mean, if we don't know for ourselves that God is patient, it's really hard to express patience to other people, you know? And I think I liked that verse so much because it's true. Jesus is not a baby anymore. He's not in the crib, you know, and he can defend himself, and he can take care of his church, and he can represent himself well. So where we do hopefully represent him well, he will always still represent himself better and well. He will be represented. He's made sure of that, you know. And so as much as like we're a part of that story, he's made it possible for us to make that choice, you know.
Yeah. You just kind of reminded me of a verse too. I believe Jesus was talking to the disciples, but he was basically just saying, like, people will know me, Jesus, God, by the way that you love each other and by the way that you love others. And so that's one of the verses that is, just always stuck with me. I think too, just in this season, this time that we've been in, I think people have really had a lot of opportunity to get with God and to get quiet and to reprioritize and just all these different things. I just have to say, though, I'm super excited as we get back into live services, have everybody together just to see where the worship goes. I think it's going to be really special, really, really unique, and I think there's going to be some awesome opportunities there. So, awesome.
I love it.
Thank you guys so much for joining me.
Thank you.
I really appreciate you guys. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed learning about worship It was really awesome. You guys have a blessed day.
Go Jesus, go
Woo!
youth, go worship. What's up?
I'll see you later.